Hi everyone, welcome to Transatlantic Crime. This week's episode is going to be a little different due to the current circumstances in America and worldwide. Rachael can't make this week's recording due to a curfew being in place in LA from 8 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. so she can hear lots of helicopters and police sirens, and she just isn't in a place to record or edit. So that's absolutely fair enough. And so I thought instead of missing a week, we would cover the killing of George Floyd, which is just basically in honour of his life and to show our solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. So without further ado, I'm just going to get into it. George Perry Floyd was a 46-year-old African-American man. He was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and he grew up in Houston, Texas. He went to Yates High School, where he played on both the basketball and the football teams. He also played basketball at South Florida Community College. He then returned to Houston, where he joined a hip-hop group called Screwed Up Click. Then in 2014, he moved to Minnesota, and he was also the father of two girls aged 6 and 22. He lived in St. Louis Park and worked in nearby Minneapolis as a restaurant security guard for 5 years. And at the time of his death, unfortunately, he'd recently lost his job due to Minnesota's stay-at-home order during the COVID-19 pandemic, which we are obviously still in. According to statements from the police and paramedics, on that day, shortly after 8 p.m., which is Memorial Day in America, May 25th, Minneapolis police responded to a, in quotation marks, forgery in progress on Chicago Avenue South in Powderhorn neighborhood. The report was that Floyd entered a deli called Cup Foods, and according to the co-owner, he tried to use forged documents, which basically meant that there was a $20 bill that he tried to use that the deli had identified as a counterfeit. So according to the police, when they arrived, George Floyd was in a car and he appeared to be under the influence. They ordered him to exit the vehicle, at which point he physically resisted. They claim they were able to get the suspect into handcuffs and noted that he appeared to be suffering medical distress and called for an ambulance. According to the Minneapolis Fire Department, paramedics moved Floyd from the location and were doing chest compressions and other life-saving measures on an unresponsive, pulseless male. Floyd was taken to Hennepin County Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead at 9:25 p.m. Now, luckily, part of this arrest was recorded by a bystander and streamed on Facebook Live, which then went viral. When the video starts, Floyd is already pinned chest down to the ground, and Officer Derek Chauvin is kneeling on his neck with his hand in his pocket. Floyd repeatedly tells Chauvin, "Please, I can't breathe," while also moaning, groaning, and sobbing. A bystander tells the police, "You've got him down, let him breathe." Another bystander says, "One of my homies died that way." And after Floyd responds, "I'm about to die the same," Chauvin tells Floyd to relax. The police ask Floyd, "What do you want?" And he answers, "I can't breathe." Floyd states, "Please, the knee in my neck, I can't breathe." Somebody tells Floyd to get up and get in the car, which some news outlets identify as one of the officers, while BuzzFeed News says that it's unclear whether it was an officer speaking. To which Floyd replies, I can't move." Chauvin continued to kneel on Floyd's neck as he struggled. Floyd cries out, "Mama," and "My stomach hurts, my neck hurts, everything hurts," and requests water, to which the police don't respond. Floyd begs at this point, "Don't kill me." Derek Chauvin continued to kneel on Floyd's neck as he struggled. Chauvin was described as putting his full body weight onto Floyd's neck. One bystander points out that Floyd is bleeding from the nose. Another tells the police that Floyd is not even resisting arrest right now. The police tell the bystander that Floyd was talking, "He's fine." A bystander replies that Floyd ain't fine. Floyd goes silent and motionless at this point, but Chauvin does not lift his knee from his neck. The bystanders protest that Floyd is not responsive and repeatedly ask the police to check Floyd's pulse. A bystander questions, "Did they fucking kill him?" An ambulance eventually arrives, and Chauvin does not remove his knee until emergency medical services put Floyd's unresponsive body on a stretcher. While Floyd was handcuffed and lying face down, Chauvin kept his knee on the right side of Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, 2 minutes and 53 seconds of which occurred after Floyd became unresponsive. Officers Thomas K. Lane, Tu Tao, and J. Alexander Kung participated in Floyd's arrest, with Kung holding Floyd's back, Lane holding his legs, and Tao looking on as he stood nearby. Once an ambulance arrives, Floyd's body is loaded into the ambulance and taken away. A 6-minute video from a nearby security camera was provided to the news media, and it shows 2 officers removing Floyd from a car. He's handcuffed and brought to a sidewalk where he sits down. A 3rd officer arrives. Later, an officer helps Floyd stand up, and 2 officers bring him over to a police vehicle where he falls to the ground. While police initially claimed that Floyd had resisted arrest, this surveillance video shows officers calmly detaining him. The surveillance video does not support any police claims that George Floyd resisted arrest. On May 26, the next day, Minneapolis Police Chief Midaria Arredondo announces that the officers were placed on leave. Later in the day, the 4 responding officers were fired. Derek Chauvin was arrested on May the 29th, and Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman charged him with 3rd-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. He also anticipated charges for 3 other officers. Under Minnesota law, 3rd-degree murder is defined as causing another's death without the intent to kill, but evinced a depraved mind without regard for human life. And second-degree manslaughter also does not imply lethal intent, but that the perpetrator created an unreasonable risk of serious harm or death. Benjamin Crump, the lawyer for Floyd's family, called for a 1st-degree charge for Chauvin, which requires an intent to kill. In the wake of community outrage in Minneapolis, the bus stop at the site of Floyd's death on Chicago Avenue became a makeshift memorial throughout May 26th. As the day progressed, the more people that showed up to demonstrate against Floyd's death. Hundreds of people then marched to the 3rd precinct of the Minneapolis police. Although the protests on the first day were initially peaceful, a smaller group of protesters vandalised 3rd precinct, breaking a window and also vandalised police cars. This led to police officers in riot gear using tear gas and flash grenades on the protesters, who threw rocks back at the police. The police also used rubber bullets and smoke bombs. The media has highlighted the differences in aggression between the police response to black protesters for George versus measured responses to the 2020 United States anti-lockdown protests, which featured white protesters wielding guns. Following protests, a nighttime curfew in Minneapolis-St. Paul enforced on May the 29th. Was enforced on May the 29th. 500 Minnesota National Guard soldiers were later dispatched to the area to enforce the curfew, but to little effect, with about 1,000 protesters being able to march peacefully on the Interstate 35 well into the curfew. Protests against brutality and the death of George Floyd have sprang up in more than 100 cities around the world, including outside the White House in Washington, outside Chauvin's summer home in Windermere, Florida, and in many other locations. On May the 30th, 12 states, including Minnesota, called up the National Guard, and at least 12 major cities imposed curfews on Saturday night, including Rachael in LA, where they have also called the National Guard. Floyd's cousin and 2 brothers were interviewed by CNN. His cousin, Tara Brown, criticised the police, saying they were supposed to be there to serve and to protect, and I didn't see a single one of them lift a finger to do anything to help while he was begging for his life. The wife of Derek Chauvin, the officer who knelt on Floyd's neck, has filed for divorce and offered her condolences to the Floyd family. He had already been charged with domestic abuse against her. He's now been charged with the murder of Floyd and is currently in jail and on suicide watch. So there concludes the story thus far. I'm sure that there'll be more and we'll keep you updated as much as we can. And most importantly, if you want to help or donate the cause, please visit the Black Lives Matter website, and we will publish links for other great causes on our social media and in the show notes. I know I speak on Rachel's behalf when I say our thoughts are with George Lloyd's family and anyone else affected by this tragedy and many others like it. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week.